So today is March 15th and it is 1:35 p.m. and we're here on Zoom. My name is Brenann Hamilton and I'm with the UNI Museum and I will be interviewing David Lantz. So thank you so much for interviewing with us today. So please state your name, what school you went to, and what years you attended that school.
My name is David Lantz. I went to school at Valley of Elgin. I graduated from there in 1965.
When did you start going to school?
I guess in 1952.
Did you start in kindergarten or was it first grade?
In kindergarten.
What was the school building like? Was it a K-12 building or were there separate schools?
The kindergarten class was in a house. It used to be a parsonage for the Lutheran minister, but apparently they used it for the kindergarten class that year. I'm not sure if it continued on that way. I think it did for a while.
From there, did you go to a regular school building per se?
Yeah, then the school building was a little ways away, there was a football field in between the two buildings, so about 100 yards away or 50 yards away or so, and that's where then first grade through 12th grade, I guess, when I first started, was in that building.
Where were you born?
I was born at Elgin, Iowa, in my grandmother's house.
What was your grandma's name?
Her name was Jane Moody. She was a midwife, so it was a natural thing for her to attend my birth, I guess. And beside that was her daughter's.
What was your family like?
I had a brother. He was killed in a car accident in 1970. He was older than my sister. He was like 12 years older than me.
So you were the youngest then?
Yes, by a long ways.
So where did you grow up?
For the first 10 years, I lived... We lived on a farm. After that, my dad took a job in town. He quit farming, and then we moved to another house that was kind of close to Elgin. We didn't move too far away, but it was a different place.
How far did you live away from the school?
Well, it was 6 miles from the farm and then 3 miles from the other house.
So what were some of your interests as a child?
Oh, I liked baseball, music, of course.
Did you play those sports when you were in school, or was it more of an after-school activity?
Well, I didn't have any. It would have been during school.
Did you play them at all in high school, or did your high school not have a team?
Yeah, I played baseball in high school and football in high school.
Were you in band at all?
I started in taking trombone lessons when I was in, I guess, 5th grade or something like that, and continued with that through high school.
Was that offered by the school, or was that private lessons?
No, that was a school.
Did you just have lessons during the school year, or did you have any summer lessons?
Yeah, we had lessons all year and summer lessons also.
What were some of your favorite types of music to play?
Well, on the trombone, I didn't have much of an option. I played whatever they give me to play, which was exercises and things, and not very interesting. I would bring my trombone to school in the fall, and then I'd take it home in the spring. So you know how much I practiced at home. I started playing guitar when I was about 15, and that's when, there was a lot of folk music being done at that time, and, so we started out playing that, and then got into more rock and roll after that.
Did you play guitar for the school, or was that just a personal band that you had?
That was just personal stuff.
Okay. I know that you also can play piano as well. Did you learn that during school, or was that after?
No, that was much later. I think I was in my 40s when I started playing the piano.
Were you in any organized bands when you were in school, besides the school band, or?
Yes, we had a little, we call it a combo, 2 guitars, a bass, and drums. And we played for school dances and at different schools around the area. And we played, the drummer's parents they owned a dance hall. And so we played, that's where we practiced. And then we'd play up there and charge, 50 cents or something to get in like that. But then after high school, then, everybody kind of went different ways, and the Army and so forth. And so that didn't last.
Oh, did you enjoy going to school?
Yeah, I did. It wasn't, I enjoyed the social life. That was what I liked. I was pretty isolated, as out in the country and didn't get much of a chance to interact with people my age out there, and so that was what I enjoyed in school.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I remember I was at my grandmother's house one time, and I saw a guy climb a telephone pole, and I thought, I'd like to do that. That's what I ended up by doing.
How long did you end up working as a telephone pole?
I started in the Army. When I was in the Army, I was a telephone man in the Army, and then went to work for the Bell Company, worked there 38 years.
What role did school play in your upbringing? Was it viewed as an option in your family or more of a requirement?
Well, I guess you didn't have an option about going to school. You had to go through the 8th grade. I would have to say, though, after that, it was more of an option. My parents didn't really. My mother told me that she didn't expect me to go to high school, so she was surprised when I did.
Obviously, you went to school in Elgin, Iowa, and you were there K-12, right?
Yes. Well, they're they consolidated then with a couple other towns, and built a new school. I think it was in '57. They built a new high school between Claremont and Elgin, and so I went through 6th grade in Elgin, 7th and 8th grade in Claremont, and then 9 through 12 in the country there.
What was the school name?
Valley High, which is kind of an oxymoron, I guess.
What was it like during the consolidation years, to move from being in Elgin to being in Claremont?
It was just business as usual. I mean, you just had to ride the bus a little longer was all. And there was some kids that we met then in Claremont, and then at that time, then the town of Wadena was consolidated also. So there was another group of kids that we got to know. And
so, were there similarities or differences between the school buildings themselves or the people within them?
The Elgin school was very old. I mean, my mother graduated from that same building. The one in Claremont was a little newer. I'm not sure just how much newer. And then, of course, the high school was new, and it was all on one level and quite nice, modern for that time. So, yeah, it was 3 different buildings. And what else did you ask?
Between the people that were in those schools, did you notice any differences when you switched over, like when you added more people into the classroom setting? Were there any distinct township personality differences?
I can't think of anything other than I felt like the kids from Wadena, which was a smaller community, had a better education than the ones from Elgin and Claremont in certain ways. That was just my perception. I mean, I don't know, but they were better schooled in some areas, like English, let's say. They knew about writing and that kind of thing better, I thought. Other than that, kids are kids, and we got along good.
So what was some of your earliest memories of going to school? I know that you mentioned in kindergarten you specifically went to an old house that used to be a pastor's house.
Yes. I remember the first day of school. I remember there were, I think, 24 kids in my class, and we didn't have desks, we had tables, and we sat at tables. And I remember coming in and seeing all these kids that I didn't know, and I picked out my spot. I was going to sit here. This is my place. And found out then when the teacher showed up that, no, you're going to sit over there. And so that's what I remember about school, the first day of school.
That building, it just looked completely like a house on the outside?
It was a house, yeah. It had been. I think it had probably been remodeled to make a more of a larger bay area, or a place for. It wasn't just small rooms. It was kind of an open area. There was a basement that we played in when it was cold, and I think there was one bathroom. And the boys would line up, and then they'd all go, take turns going to the bathroom, and then the girls would line up, or vice versa, or whatever it was.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was not too convenient that way, I guess. But we didn't care.
Okay. Was the house then basically, besides the basement, was there just one classroom with all 24 of you in there, or
Yes, it was just one group, and we're in the same room.
what did the house look like? Do you remember?
Well, it was white, and it was not real big, and one story.
On the inside, what did the classroom look like?
Like I said, it had tables and chairs, and I remember there was a sand table. If you know what a sand table is, where kids can play in the sand. And I suppose there was a blackboard. I can't remember now. Teacher's desk. I know there was a piano in there because the teacher would teach us little songs. That's about all that was in there, as far as I know.
I know you mentioned that there was about a football field away, the K or the first grade through 12th grade building. So did you share playground with those kids, or did you have a separate area where you were expected to?
Well, there was a yard there where that house was, and so we played there. But then the football field for the high school football team which was right next. We were on the far out end of the field, you know. And then another thing is our lunchroom was in the in the main building, the high school. So we walked then from our school to the other one for lunch.
So, what did the typical morning before school look like? Like when you were getting ready to go to school, were there any specific chores or anything you had to do before you could leave, or any little morning rituals?
No, I had my ritual was just to get out of bed. I usually get out of bed and run for the bus.
Did you take the bus every morning?
Yeah, I rode the bus. No, I didn't. I didn't have any chores, I guess, to speak of before school. Just a matter of getting. My mother had a hard time getting me to get up, and so that was usually I'd get to the bus just in the nick of time.
When you went to school, did you have a school uniform or a dress code that you had to follow?
No, no, we just wore, you know, normal clothes, jeans and a shirt, or I think it kind of got to a time when we didn't wear jeans, but we wore more like slacks, you know, or kind of little dressier.
Was that more an age thing? Like as you got older, you were expected to dress nicer?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It wasn't like it was a law or anything that we had to couldn't wear jeans, but you know, just that's what people wore, and that's what you know. If your mother bought you this to wear, that's what you wore. I remember I was always proud of the fact that when I was in high school, I had 35 shirts, mostly either somebody gave me or were made for me, and we didn't buy clothes that much or anything. But I had all these really nice shirts that I enjoyed wearing. This was in high school. I had her make me a shirt. I said, I want a purple shirt because I had seen West Side Story. Those Puerto Ricans had purple shirts and black suits, and I thought, man, that looks really good. So she made me a purple shirt.
What were some of your at-home expectations? Like, did you have any chores to do or homework, anything like that?
Well, yeah, there was always homework to do if you wanted to do it. But I had, you know, when my mother started working, and then she would call me and say, you know, start peeling some potatoes or that kind of thing. And then we heated the house with wood, and so there was always a wood pile that I would split wood or cut wood and bring it in the house and that kind of thing. And we didn't have running water. We had to go outside and get the water out of a pump, and that was, you know, I was expected to keep that water pail full. When my mother washed clothes, we had to carry water in for that. And she heated it on the stove.
So did you have an outhouse then as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like in the winter?
Yeah, it was kind of a difficult thing in the wintertime, you know, sweep the snow off.
At your school, did you have an outhouse as well, or did they have running water in there?
Oh, they had running water there.
I know that we described the kindergarten building, but when you were in the second building in Elgin that you said you were in until sixth grade, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like?
2 stories, a big square building, 2 stories with a basement, of course, and a gymnasium. And the lunchroom was down in the basement. And on the main floor was the smaller grades, 1, 2, and 3. And then 5 and 6 were upstairs, and the principal's office was upstairs.
And then your high school building, was that also, how was that organized?
It was like 2 corridors. When you came in, there was a hallway that ran to your right and down all the way down to the other end of the building, where there was a library down there, and then there were classrooms on either side of that corridor and lockers. And then there was another corridor that went straight ahead, more or less. And there was some classrooms down there in the band room, and then on the left side, or as you come in the main entrance, straight ahead was the gymnasium. Then there was a shop down on the other way down on the left, a shop and egg room, and that's about all, I guess.
Did your school, for all of your schools, I know that your first school had a basement. Did the rest of the schools have basements, or?
The high school did not really have a basement. They had a furnace room that was kind of on a little lower level, but it wasn't really like a basement or a full basement or anything like that. It was pretty much just one story.
Did your schools have a gym or a cafeteria?
Cafeteria was, yeah, that was down that left side too. A good sized cafeteria. A lot of I don't know what you call them, like picnic tables, that kind of style of.
So when you arrived at school, how did the school day typically begin?
Oh, just everybody went to their homeroom, and of course, had a class. The first, there would be announcements from the principal on an intercom system, and after that class, then we went to a different class, until all your classes were used up. And usually there'd be a couple study halls at the end of the day, unless you were involved in some extracurricular type activities like vocal music, or, well, I guess actually we had a vocal music that was part of the regular curriculum.
Oh, okay.
Well, football practice was the last 2 hours of the day, and or you had study hall.
Did you also have physical education as well?
Yeah, when it wasn't when you weren't out for football or in the off season, then there was PE, we called it, physical education, and or phys ed or whatever. Yeah, you had that. I don't remember now. That wasn't every day. I don't know if it was once a week or more than that. Now I can't remember. During that time, there was the president of the United States ordered us to have everybody to meet a certain criteria as far as your physical. So we were always doing that. We were always getting ready for that. It seemed like it.
Was that called the presidential fitness test?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Were you expected to wear uniforms for
We were expected to wear shorts, but they weren't a uniform. They weren't all the same. It's whatever you wanted to wear or had to wear.
When you first arrived to school, what did you and your classmates do when you first got into the building? Was there time to just spend time with friends chatting, or were you just expected to go straight to your desk?
Yeah, there was usually 10 minutes or something where everybody milled around and talked and got in fights and that kind of thing.
How frequent were fights?
Oh, not very often. Once in a while. Once in a while, something would happen, and somebody get a bloody lip or something.
Were there teachers around supervising? Did they ever step in, or?
Oh yeah, they did. They didn't let you go at it too hard. Although I remember me and a guy when we were in shop class, and he always wanted to fight with me. So anyway, we got into it, and the instructor came into the room, and he stood there and watched us for a while, and then he finally broke it up after. He said, "That's enough of that. Get away, get to work."
So how many students were in your grade or in your graduating class?
52.
Do you know how many students were in your school altogether?
You mean in all the grades?
Yes, in all the grades, the entire school.
I really don't know. I would guess a few hundred, or In the last years at Valley it's of its own on its own school district, 400 kids in the whole school district. So that's why they had to consolidate with West Union, because there just wasn't enough kids there to justify it.
How do you remember your classmates?
My classmates are good people. I like them all.
So how do you think that they remember you?
Oh, they always laugh at me for some reason or other.
Were you like a class clown?
Well, at times I guess I was. I remember one class reunion, and everybody's supposed to go around the room and say, where do you expect to be doing by the next class reunion? And everybody thought, oh, they were going to be, doing this or that, or working at the same job or whatever. I said, I think in 5 years I'm going to be a pilot for United Airlines. Well, that just cracked them up. They thought that was the funniest thing ever. I guess it's because they didn't figure I was capable of that.
When you were in school, what were some of the lessons that you studied, or what were some classes that you took?
Well, English, history, science, some math. I'm not very good at math, or I wasn't then at least. And then I had, of course, I took industrial arts, and then along with that was, electronics and some automotive mechanic stuff. And
what was your favorite class?
I liked history. I mean, I did fairly well in history. I did well in industrial arts. I can't say that I had one particular subject that I liked really good.
How was the school day structured?
Classes until lunch, and then after lunch, another class or two, and then, like I said, study hall after that, and then we're done.
So did you have any exams or writing assignments or tests that you took? Like, how did the teachers assess learning?
Yeah, obviously we had tests. We had unit tests and chapter tests and pop quizzes and all this and that. I always thought that I was good at taking tests. Even if I didn't know the material that well, I could usually pass a test.
What kind of school supplies did you use?
Books. We didn't have computers or anything like that, or just books and workbooks.
Did you have to purchase these yourselves, or was it like rented or purchased through the school? How did that work?
It was book rental. Yeah, that had to be paid for at the beginning of the school term. I don't know how much it was. I can't remember. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was probably a lot for those times. $10 or $12 or something. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned you had music education, and you mentioned that your teacher had a piano in the room. Was that a part of the curriculum as well, along with like PE and the rest of the classes?
That was in kindergarten.
Just kindergarten? Okay.
Yeah, that was just and it was not that we played the piano or anything like that. It was like to teach kids little songs, And
did your teachers then continue to have a piano when you took later music classes at all, or did they use instead like radios or any other forms of technology?
I don't think we had radios or record players or anything like that. But of course, in high school, we had our teachers were musicians, obviously, and they could play and help us to learn songs and that kind of thing. I can't even think of. Oh, that's right. We did in junior high. Okay, now that's coming back to me. We had a separate building for music. So it was a smaller building. Hey, that's right. Now I'm thinking about even in Elgin, there was they put up some smaller classrooms, individual buildings, and I remember 4th and 5th grade, I think, were in those. They put up some small one-room buildings. They're classrooms. I know I was in 4th grade. seems like 5th and 6th grade, I was back in the main building again.
What were your teachers like? Did you have any favorite teachers or ones maybe that you weren't as big of a fan of?
Well, I'm sure there were some good teachers. So, yeah, I had a teacher. He was a young fella. He must have been just starting out, and he was nice. He was a good, he taught science and math, and he was the junior high football coach. But we had, and this is in junior high, we had the varsity football coach was taught science, and he was not cut out to be a teacher. You know, he might have been a good coach, but I didn't think he was particularly good. And you know, you have good and you have bad and everything. And, you know, I'm sure there were some good teachers there, and they cared about the kids. Oh, my freshman math teacher, she was very concerned about her students and wanted them to do well. And so I appreciated that. She helped me a lot.
What did teachers typically wear to school? Was it very professional attire, similar to the students?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they dressed up nice. Yeah, the men usually wore a suit. Women wore dresses, whatever. And I don't think I ever saw one wear slacks or anything like any women wearing pants. That wasn't done.
In your classrooms, what were some of the rules, or were there any disciplinary techniques that teachers would use if you broke any of the rules?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In junior high, our principal he had a crooked spine. And so he walked kind of stooped over to one side, and he was a very short-tempered guy. He didn't like people that didn't behave. And I know I got disciplined once. He'd come up and he got me by the skin on my back and dug his nails into my back, took the skin off. I remember another time I was in the restroom, and one of the kids was in there, and he was leaning up against the wall and kind of just absent-mindedly bumping up against the wall like a kid will do. Wall happened to be on this other side of that wall was the principal's office. And this man come into the bathroom and walked up, and he slapped that kid right side the head just as hard as he could. And he turned around and he walked right back out. He never said anything. But so we had that kind of a thing going on.
Where did you eat lunch?
We had cafeteria, and so everybody would go in there, and I think they had two different sessions of either eat at this period or the next one.
Were you able to sit with your friends, or did the teachers have a seating chart at all?
No. We sat wherever we wanted to.
Did you bring your own lunch to lunch, or did you eat, or were you more likely to eat the school provided lunch?
Well, everybody ate pretty much what they provided. But I guess I'll tell you, I know your grandma wants me to tell you this story. A bunch of us had gotten fed up, so to speak, with the lunch, that we didn't think it was very good, and we were going to protest. So we went through the lunch line, and didn't take anything. So I guess we showed them. Well, the next day we decided that we made our point, and so we went and we were going to eat that day, but they hadn't made enough. They hadn't made enough to feed us. So then that thereafter was referred to the Great Sack Lunch Rebellion of 1965. I guess, the cooks, they didn't know. They just made what they were told to make.
Was there any particular really popular foods when you were a kid?
I just don't remember even what we did have. I think we had fish sticks on Friday.
After lunch, what was recess like?
Well, we had some time then to visit, or I suppose, I don't remember if we could go into the gym and shoot baskets or anything like that. I can't remember that, but there was some free time to just knock around, I guess.
Were you allowed to go outside? Did you have outside equipment, or was it more inside?
I suppose we could go outside, and in junior high we could go over town. I remember that. We'd walk over to because some of the kids, they didn't want to eat. They wanted to go and eat potato chips and pop.
Ooh.
So they'd just go over there and do that. Or you could eat lunch, and then you'd have enough time to walk over and get a pop or something if you wanted to. But at the high school, we were out in the country, so there wasn't anywhere we could go.
Did your school have any rules against certain games or activities that were played during recess?
No, I don't think so. We played those games. We played tackle football.
Yeah.
You know, once in a while somebody might get hurt a little bit, but it usually wasn't any big deal.
When you were in kindergarten, did you have a nap time at all or anything like that?
Yeah, they made us take a nap or at least be quiet, you know, lay down, be quiet.
Were you allowed to bring blankets or pillows or any of that, or were you required to potentially bring anything?
I brought a little mat or a rug or something. I remember that. And I got made fun of for that.
Oh, why?
Why? Well, because my siblings thought it was, they'd like to make fun of me because I was a little kid, you know. So they made fun of that. So I was embarrassed to take that rug.
Did the school day end?
We was our last class or wherever I don't remember if we went to our homeroom for the last. I bet we did. I bet we went back to the homeroom for the last while. I mainly remember, you know, a few minutes before the buzzer was going to ring, people would close their books and stack them up on their desk, and then they'd sit right on the edge of their seat and wait for that bell to go. Soon as they were out the door.
I know you mentioned that you took the bus to get to school. Did you also take the bus home?
Yeah, took the bus home. We had to go. We took a bus to Elgin and then changed buses and then went from there on home.
Did you have to take any type of eighth grade exam at all?
No, I guess not. Not that I know of. I don't think so. I mean, just something to see that you can go on to high school. Yeah, no, we didn't do that.
You also talked about all of the consolidation. So do you have any particular memories of consolidation?
Well, see, that was done before it didn't affect me for the first couple of years of it. I was in the lower grades, you know, and so I just continued in the same school for the first couple of years of consolidation.
Okay.
There was a couple of the kids, maybe more, I don't remember now, who didn't go to school with us those years because of where they lived. Went to a Claremont grade school, so we kind of lost some kids there. And that was the only thing I remember that happened to me as far as consolidation was there were kids that I was friends with that were not there anymore.
Were there any additional students coming in, or was it mostly just?
Not that I can think of. I don't think so. I think there was only like two that I can think of right now that didn't continue on in our class.
Oh.
Then see, when we went into junior high, then we were back with them again.
What was that like, rejoining with the students that?
Well, what that was like was I had one of my best friend was one of those that got changed to Claremont. And then after 2 years, and we got back together again, we weren't best friends anymore. You know, things had changed. So that was kind of unfortunate, I always thought.
Was there any territorialism, I guess, when there was new students coming in or between the two schools being put together? Were there kind of rivalries between the schools at all?
You know, there probably was to some small degree,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say very minimal. I don't think so.
Did you have a parent on the school board at all during this process?
No.
Would you say that the teachers or the school supplies or the way school was run really changed during consolidation, or did it stay for the most part the same?
You know, just going from a lower grade to the middle school, there, you know, as far as our class, we didn't sit in one room all the time. The teacher come to us. We went to the teacher's room. You know, that's the only difference that I can think of right now is that. But I think that would have happened regardless of whether it was consolidated or not.
What was the school year-round schedule like? So did you have any breaks? Like, when did the school year start? When did it end? That sort of thing.
Well, I'm sure it started in late August. You know, we had, I don't remember, you know, we had like Christmas, 2 weeks Christmas vacation. I don't think we ever had what they call spring break. I don't recall that at all. I don't remember if we even had like Good Friday. probably, I was going to say, and Thanksgiving. I'm sure we had a couple days off for Thanksgiving, but other than that, it was just straight through. And then the year would have ended in May.
During summer break, what did you do during that time period?
Well, when I was in high school, I worked for neighbors, helped them. I had one guy I worked quite a bit for, making hay and helping with his hogs and that kind of thing. Worked by the hour, you know. I worked for several neighbors.
Oh.
I asked my mother one day when I was about 13 or 14, I said, I'd like to have some money. How can I get some money? She says, go get a job. I said, well, how do I do that? Well, she says, you just go out here, go down the road, and stop at the first place you come to and ask them for a job. And so I did. And then, so I went to work for this guy, and then pretty soon another guy called and wanted me to come and help him. So, you know, I helped quite a few guys, farmers around there. And that's what I did during the summer.
Would you say that's pretty typical for what the other students in your community did as well?
I suppose that yeah, I'm sure that wasn't unusual.
So were there any special events, either at your school or during the summer that involved the larger community or brought like all the towns together?
We used to have band concerts on Wednesday nights in the park in Elgin. And so high school band would get together and I don't remember now if it was every week or, sometimes we'd go to Wadena and play there. There was they had built a new bridge in Wadena and we went and played on the bridge for a dedication ceremony for that. And I think we did that also when they built a bridge between Claremont and Elgin. And so we played for that and different events like that. We had band concerts they called it the Claremont Dairy Days. It was like a little fair, so we'd play for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was your school at all used for any community events like boating or anything, or like the building itself?
Not that I'm aware of. Several years after I graduated, though, it got to be used for, you could rent parts of it out for like gatherings and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I remember going there for a family get-together one time to the high school.
Do you remember any major local, national, or world events that occurred during your school years?
The Kennedy assassination. I was probably a sophomore. We were in class, I think history class, and then it was announced over the intercom that President Kennedy had been assassinated. And so that was pretty traumatic. Pretty wild, to think that. Everybody thought he was just wonderful, I can't think of anything else right offhand that would compare anywhere near that, I guess.
Okay. Anything with maybe the Cold War, like the Cuban Missile Crisis or Vietnam?
Well, that would have been, yeah, absolutely during before that time. I was in 62. That didn't really affect, unless you were following politics and following world events like that, which I wasn't. I probably heard about it, but it kind of went over my head. We didn't take a newspaper, so we didn't get a lot of national news. We got, local news. Of course, we took the Elgin paper, but that was not too interesting because that was pretty much filled up with so-and-so visited so-and-so on Saturday night,
Being in the Cold War, did you have any sort of duck and cover drills that you did, like where you would either get under your desk or, I don't know, stuff like that?
No, I don't recall that. I see that on TV and different things on TV where they did that, but we never did that. I really don't think that we were too worried in Elgin, Iowa about being bombed,
What did you do when you finished high school?
I went to work I got a job at a turkey plant in Postville. I did that. Well, that was one of the first that I can think of, jobs that I did. And then that was a seasonal job, and so I got laid off. And then I went to work for driving a portable feed mill. So I'd go around to different farmers and grain feed for them. And I did that for, I don't know, several months. And I got a draft notice, so then I went into the Army after that.
How long did you spend in the Army?
2 years.
And that was during Vietnam, right?
Yep, I spent a year in Vietnam. Then I was stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington after that. And then I got out in July of 68. And then I went to work for Northwestern Bell Telephone Company.
Your experiences in Vietnam, were you stationed in a particular area there, or did you kind of move around? Or
I was stationed in a place called Pleiku, that is on the eastern side of Vietnam, right on the South China Sea.
Oh, okay.
And our motor pool was right on the beach. And so I was there a couple of months, and then we got assigned to a place called Pleiku, and we had a job to place telephone cable around in the 4th Infantry Division base camp, and we placed, I think the biggest cable was a 600 pair cable, which is, medium sized, pretty good size, but they were putting in a dial central system because before they had switchboard operators, and they wanted, well, I always said that shows you how long term they planned, because they did, they put in this communication system, so they planned on staying there a while. And then around not only did we go from within the camp, but then around the perimeter of the camp, we placed a cable. There was bunkers around the perimeter, and we placed cable to each one of those. Now that job was supposed to take 2 months. We were there 8.5 months. We ran into the monsoon season. That pretty well took care of that for several weeks. And when there was some terrain that we had an old machine, a trenching machine, but it didn't work real well, and so we just had a lot of problems that way. I think our leadership was probably not too experienced in placing phone cable, and so I think that was a lot of it too.
So since you placed phone cables, did you ever have any encounters with like CBS News or any news channels that would come over to do war footage at all? Or
No, I never saw anything of those people.
What are some important takeaways that you would want people to remember from your school experience?
School is important, and it's a lot more important now than it was then.
Yeah. Did you have a best or worst day at school?
No, I just, it was all sort of like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just the same.
Yeah, just another day.
What are some lessons that you've learned from this time in your life?
I can't think of nothing.
Okay. Can you think of any comparisons or contrasts from your experiences in school to the experiences of school today? Or like, what would you say are the biggest changes in education over the years?
Going by what I understand from Aaron, I don't think that teachers are supported by their employers like they should be, like they were when I went to school. I think they had a lot more support. Teachers had some control over their classes and over their students, and apparently that's all gone.
And just for the record, Erin is your youngest daughter.
Yes. This brings to mind a story about when I was in school, and one of my classmates decided that he'd had enough of school, and he left. Now, he was down here in Fayette playing pool after that. And the principal from my school found him, walked into the pool room, grabbed him by the collar, and took him right back to school. He said, "You're not leaving. Continue on with school." He said, and this guy told me years later, he says, "That's the best thing that anybody's ever done for me." And so you see, that's the difference, because you couldn't do that now.
And is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that maybe we just didn't have the chance to get to?
Well, I've talked about a lot more than I thought I would.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I think I've said everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.